Hello, I'm Tess from the Arty Crafty Place and thank you for joining me for a block printing video. Today I'm going to be showing you and sharing with you tips for printing with border designs. Now you may have seen our new Jaipur collection which launched recently, and it consists of a lot of border patterns. Now I use these around the edge of my items when I'm block printing, but also to create an overall design. So for example, this set of patterned napkins, I have just used border designs to create the design. And before you start something like this, you want to be really confident when using the border designs. You want to know how to change direction and the best way to create a straight line. So I'm going to be sharing with you tips that are really going to help. And you want to do a lot of practicing with border designs before you move on to projects. I'll show you a couple of items that I've printed with borders to inspire some of your own creations and show you where you can get to once you're confident with using the border designs. So first item is this beautiful organic cotton scarf, which I have printed using 3 different border designs. And I've created the design going up the scarf just using the different borders. So this does need you to have some quite good skill in printing with straight lines and matching the designs up. Well, that's what I'm going to show you today. Another set of printed items is this beautiful set of patterned napkins. Again, just printed using a mixture of border designs. And you can really easily use them to create different patterns. And then also another item we have is our lovely new hand towels, again printed using border designs. So I'm going to share with you now some tips that are going to make your block printing a lot easier. So on my practice fabric, I'm just going to be using 3 different border patterns, all very different. So we've got this solid straight line, this lovely Indian paisley border, and a row of spots. So I'm going to be showing you on my practice how I would print these, and that's really going to help your confidence grow. So the most important thing when you're printing with a border is that you have a straight line to follow. So what I use is masking tape. So I'm going to cut myself a strip of masking tape, and I'm going to use this as my straight line. Now, one thing I would say is when you're printing on a ready-made item, so for example, a napkin or a tea towel, because they're hand-stitched, they're not always straight. So you don't want to follow the edge of the fabric in case it isn't straight because it will set you wonky. So I always use masking tape instead. So I've got my strip of masking tape, and this is going to be my straight line to follow. So first off, let's start with a straight line solid border. So I'm going to print with this in midnight blue, and you print with it like you would any other block. So I'm going to apply the paint normally, and then I'm going to print this along my line. So what you want to do is you want to be careful that you're lining this up. So the way I print is by touching one corner down on the fabric first, and then allowing the rest to follow. And I'll show you why that's the easiest way to do it next. So I'm going to give that a good wiggle and then up. Now, the reason you don't want to put the whole block down at the same time is that it does make it very hard to line up. So by just touching one corner down first, you then allow yourself time to straighten or adjust the block. So next up, I'm going to join this print to the previous one. So I'm going to touch the bottom corner down first, just so it's touching my last print, making sure you're really looking at the print, looking down and overhead so you can really see how you're lining that block up. And I've got my bottom corner touching, so that way you can see I've got movement to wiggle. And then I'm going to follow my line, adjust the block if I need to, and then give it a good wiggle. So there we go. So you can slightly see my join, but that doesn't matter. But I've got a really nice continuous straight line. And again, for the final one, again, using the bottom corner, so the bottom left corner, to touch down onto my previous print, really looking at the block, making sure you're lining it up. And then I'm going to follow my straight line and put that down. And there we go. So very easy. So it's a really good starting point. Now, as you can see with this straight line, because it's quite a solid print, it's quite cloudy. So the only block I ever overprint with is this straight line. But you can see here on my napkin, this straight line in aquamarine is really strong and vibrant. It's very deep colour, and that's because I printed it twice. So when you want to do that, you don't need to wait for the last print to dry. You can do it straight away again. But I'm just going to line this back up on top and print over the top. And like I said, the straight line is the only block I do that with because it's the easiest one to line up. Most other ones you'll never get perfectly lined up, so I wouldn't suggest it. Or if you're not confident with lining up, then don't worry about this bit. But as you can see, it just really strengthens the colour of the straight line. And normally that straight line is my outside border, so I want it to be really strong in colour. So you can see there's a good colour difference between them. So one more print, and again printing exactly the same way, touching the bottom left hand corner down first, and then allowing the rest of the block to follow. And there we go. There's my straight line. So if I remove that masking tape, you should be able to see that I've stayed really straight and I've been really precise with my printing. So that is probably the biggest tip when I'm using a border block, is to definitely create yourself a straight line. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going to use my masking tape again, just create myself a new straight line. And I'm going to use this more detailed Indian border design. So this one's a bit more difficult because when I repeat print it, I've got 3 edges that I need to match up. But don't be nervous. As soon as you've done a couple of prints and got it wrong, you'll then know how to print it correctly. So I'm going to do this one in a lovely Indian aqua. Tap the paint all over. And then again, exactly the same again. I'm going to print the bottom left-hand corner down first. So I touch that down just above my masking tape, and then again, I've got the movement to adjust my printing block. So I'm then going to set it down against my masking tape. I'm not printing onto the masking tape, I'm using that as my straight line to follow. And then giving it a good wiggle, and then up. So this is the type of design that does need a bit more practicing because you've got to line up all 3 places. But again, you're going to touch the bottom left-hand corner down, and then I can make sure the rest of the design follows. So you're just looking at it by eye. There's no right or wrong way to line this up. You're just doing it by eye, and you're just watching to make sure that the block fits to your previous print. And you've just got to make the mistakes and do it wrong, and then you'll know how to print it right. Because each block prints differently, you've just got to try it and see which way works. So again, you can see I've got a really good join there. You can hardly see where the pattern has been joined together. And that's what you want. You know, if you ever have a little gap or anything, sometimes I touch it up with a paintbrush. But that's really a very good join. And the same again here, really looking down at the block and then printing along my straight line. And you can see that the straight line really helps. That really guides you. If you're printing along a wonky line or just doing it by eye, it's a lot harder to match it up. And there we go. So my second one matched up perfectly. Now the last one I'm going to show you is just a spotty border. So this is really easy to do because you don't have to match anything up. It's just got a small gap in between each dot. So when I print something like this, I still use my straight line, that's important. But I'm going to print this one down. And then when I print the next one as a repeat, I just mimic the spacing that is already in the design. So there's a couple of millimeters between each spot. So when I print it, I'm going to just mimic the same spacing, leave a couple of millimeters, and then follow my straight line. And the same again for my last one. I'm going to put my block down, follow my line and give it a wiggle. And there we go. Again, you can't see the join. I've just mimicked the spacing. This one's maybe slightly higher, but it doesn't matter overall. You just can't notice that when you're printing a large piece of fabric. So there you can see 3 borders that I've printed, and you can see how well they've joined together and how good they look in a continuous line. Turn this around. So it's really important to make sure that you're practicing lining the block up. It might take you 20 times before you get it right, but once you get that join correct, you'll be really happy with the overall effect. So I wanted to show you now on an item that I'm printing with the borders and to show you a couple of tips of how to do this. So I have got my outline of my solid border and I masking taped the area off, so I've got a perfect rectangle, and that was really easy for me to follow my straight lines. And now I'm working inside and I'm doing my second border, which I'm going to show you how to carry on. Now, one thing I would say is when you're working on a ready-made item, you always want to work from the outside in. If you work from the inside out, you're obviously quite often left with not enough room to finish your design unless you've perfectly spaced it. So I always work from the outside in, and that way I can really space my design, and then I can see what space I've got left to finish it off. So with this border, I'm using a lovely floral border. And I'm going to turn it so it's facing me. You want to be as close to the print as possible. What you don't want is to be printing really far away from you so you can't line the block up perfectly. So I'm going to print here and I'm going to continue my border all the way to the end. And then what I'm going to do is I want to show you what happens when you don't have enough space to fit 3 full prints in. I want to show you how to stop there and how to correct your print. So I'm going to print a couple on here and then I'll show you where I get to. So for this, I'm using my previous border as my straight line to follow. As I know that's straight, I'm confident printing off of that. But you could also create yourself another straight line to follow with your masking tape. So I'm going to pop this down and I'm going to slowly just follow the same technique I did last time, just placing the bottom corner down first and then allowing the rest of the block to follow. So again, when I match this up, I'm touching the bottom left-hand corner down and allowing the rest of the block to follow. Now, as you can see, when I get to this next print, I'm going to be going over the edge. And this is because I always say that I start from the outside in. So you always might have this issue. But what you can do is using your masking tape, I just mask off the area that my block is going to go over because I don't want the paint to go onto there. And then that masking tape will just catch that excess paint. So as you can see, I'm going to tap the whole block with paint. I'm going to touch down again and then allow your block to go over the edge and onto the masking tape. And this is just something that you'll all want to bear in mind. Otherwise, when you get to this point, you might feel a bit stuck. So I've got that. I'll lift my masking tape up. And as you can see, I've got the perfect finishing point. I'm just going to print along the top here. I might have the same issue again, but again, I'll just use the masking tape to mask off the section where I don't want the paint to go. And there you have it. I've now got my continuous border working around the whole 4 sides of my fabric. And now I can work out how much space I've got left in the middle and finish my design. So hopefully that has shared with you a few tips and tricks for when you're using border designs. And hopefully if you've practiced this, work on lining up and work on continuous patterns, you'll feel a lot more confident and you'll be able to move on to other project videos in our Jaipur collection. Thank you very much for watching.